Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast. It's the Thursday, August 6, 2026 episode of the Marco Jure Show, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Got a great show lined up for us today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to let you all know that the Iranians and the Omanis are now finalizing the details of how business will be conducted to reopen the Strait of Hormuz today. Isn't that nice? Now, an announcement should be released sometime later today, I'm told. The investors on Wall Street are going to love this one. And I'm sure we'll see the markets beginning to fluctuate back and forth like we have during these alleged talks between the U.S. and Iran. Yet, despite this good news of this resuming of the commercial traffic through the Strait, the investors on Wall Street are still skeptical today. And how do I know this? Because I'm looking at CNBC right now. I'm looking at the price of oil right now. I would expect it to go down, to be honest with you. Talks of the Strait opening up again, the resumption of traffic. Who wouldn't want this? This sounds like a good idea. But I'm looking at Brent Crude right now. It's still north of $81 per barrel. It's up 3% today from today's open. Now, we'll talk about what's happening in the oil industry in my next segment. But let's see exactly what's going on in this agreement between these two nations that are going to become very independently wealthy moving forward, thanks to both Israel and the United States. What they've come out and said now, this is just a little bit of a teaser, but they've said that shipping through the Strait will face no fees or tolls under this temporary deal agreed to between both Oman and Iran. So these two nations are coming together. Where's the United States in all this? I mean, this is what they told MS Nobody Cares today. It's between the Iranians and the Omanis. So where's the United States in this? I thought Scott Bessent said we were in talks with them. What's going on here? So does the U.S. have any say in what's going on here? Seems to be no. Now, they've added that in the deal, it includes both inbound traffic, will take the Iranian territorial waters, as well as the outbound traffic will then route through the Omani side of the Strait of Hormuz. Remember, folks, this is a very narrow corridor. It's only about 21 miles in length, not very big at all. And so what it appears will be happening now, moving forward, any incoming traffic goes through the Iranian side, any outbound traffic will go through the Omani side. Now, whether they coordinated that with the United States, if they did, they're not telling us. But this is, again, is very, very crucial because despite them not offering any tolls right now, eventually this will become commonplace. This is exactly what's going to happen. The Omanis understand this and the Iranians understand this. And they understand that they're going to get very, very wealthy as a result of this. So, where do we go from here, though? This is the big question. If they're not talking to the United States right now, how do we get the United States back into these talks? That's the big question I have for everybody. Now, Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Jarababadi has said that the United States will be ready to return to commitments, that's what he said late on Wednesday. At the same time, he was denying that the United States was involved in these negotiations, speaking with Washington. So again, the United States isn't even speaking to them. We're not involved in this. We have nothing to do with it. By the way, he didn't elaborate on any of the commitments, but he just said that the interim understanding was reached back in June. So what he's saying, and this is what I've been telling you all along, the Iranians want to see the United States come to the table. The memorandum of understanding signed on June 17th between both countries is the framework of which they will work moving forward. So if the United States is willing to come to the table, then they've got to come in good faith. They've got to start honoring some of the commitments inside of this agreement. What would that look like? The removal of sanctions, the unfreezing of assets, the money for reconstruction, the removal of the naval blockade, some 500 miles outside of the Strait of Hormuz, the ending of the war in Lebanon, between Israel and Lebanon. All that's got to stop. So if the United States is serious about this, then maybe they see them come up with all this right at the front, and they say, here you go, here's your money. Naval blockade is gone. The war in Lebanon will stop. We promise you on that one. We're working on it right now. If we do this and come to the table in good faith, then maybe we talk about nuclear weapons. Then maybe we talk about fees in the Strait of Hormuz. Maybe that happens later on. But right now, the Omanis, the Iranians, are making all the arrangements in the region right now. There's no shortage of that. They are the ones in control. They are the ones that have military operation. They're not going to stop. And there's nothing the United States can do about this. No amount of bombing will stop this. It will only allow them to continue to want to do more of this. And so, folks, while this sounds like something positive, it's just showing you that the Iranians have amassed some great leverage moving forward. They are in control of the Strait. They will become very wealthy as a result of this. So if we were worried about getting the Iranians more money, now what we've done is put more money in their pockets. If we want to come to the table and discuss more about nuclear technology, the enrichment of uranium, that all comes much, much later down the road. It's not happening right now. The Iranians aren't even discussing this with the United States, despite what we've been told, of course. And so I think the understanding between the two countries, the Iranians and, of course, the United States, nothing happens until we come to the table in good faith first. We have got to show them, yes, we are going to agree to this. But this is the Iranian framework, mind you. So, yeah, they might say, okay, here's what we're going to do. You either agree to this or not. That's going to be the path forward. But what also is very telling is that the Iranians and the Omanis are prepared to move forward without the United States' approval. That's another big part I took away from this because, again, we're not even involved in this. It's not like Marco Rubio is making a deal or Steve Witkoff or Jared Kushner. No one is making this deal with the Iranians saying, okay, we would like this. We would like this traffic to move this way. It has nothing to do with it. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything here. We are null and void in these conversations. Might as well not even be there. The Iranians have made it very, very clear. They control the Strait. They will control the traffic of the Strait. And at some point, they will charge a toll or a fee in some form or another, of course. The United States will be very miffed about that, but many other countries do this. Turkey does it. The Panamanians do it. The Egyptians do it. I mean, all these other countries do it too. So it wouldn't be out of the question if that would happen. And by the way, let's all refer ourselves back over to the other strait that's very crucial here for oil transportation, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait itself. Right now, it's shut off to all Saudi shipping right now. Unless, of course, it's going to China. Let's see how that works. So we've got so much chaos going on in the oil industry, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's shocking to me that this has gone on for this long and we have not reverted track. How have we sat here and said this is a good idea? That we continue to keep the petroleum in the region just completely shut down. These ships that are just rotting away inside the Persian Gulf for months now. We were told by President Trump this would be over in 96 hours. Now we're 6 months into it. And there's no end in sight. And by the way, folks, I don't believe we're done. I believe we're just getting started. I know some of you are sitting there going, no, Gerace, it's over now. Once we get the Strait opened up again, the United States will just back off and it'll be as it was before. Not going to happen. And let me tell you why I don't believe this, because I've got information now that the United States is sending additional resources to the region right now. And anytime we send more resources to a certain area, folks, everything begins to heat up. I mean, folks, it was as clear as mud in February when we started putting warships right outside the Persian Gulf. I said, okay, we're going to go to war then. And if we do this, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. And what happened? X, Y, and Z happened, and the war began. So this was set in motion a long, long time ago. I don't believe President Trump will try to capitulate in any meaningful way. Maybe he claims victory at some point just to get himself out of it. So I think this war ends in one of three ways. Number one, we run out of money. That's very possible. That could happen. Number two, we run out of munitions. Again, very possible. We know that our munitions are significantly down from where they were, certainly pre-war. But when we consider all the munitions we've given to Ukraine and Israel and all these other countries, I mean, at one point we were asking Japan back to give us back these missiles that we gave them. I mean, that's how bad it got. We were not anticipating the war to go on as long as we were. That's very true. That's very true. And the third is, President Trump understands that what he's doing is never going to succeed. It's only going to make things much, much worse and make him much more unpopular. And he gets out of the region prior to the midterm elections this fall. And American people like it. They're happy about it. At least that gives him some boost in polling and, of course, maybe to retain the House and Senate, which look very, very slim right now. Not looking very good for Republicans, if you look at what's going on. Certainly with the polling suggesting everything, it's not looking very good for President Trump. Does President Trump want to be a lame duck the remainder of his tenure and accomplish absolutely nothing? Is that the way he would like to go out? I don't think so, to be honest with you. So I think he's got to make maybe one last-ditch effort here. But you would not be amassing more resources to the region unless you were considering to, again, attack. And by the way, he's been talking about this. We usually hear him say things like this time and time again. Right, we'll always hear things like obliterate them. We're going to hit them as hard as we can. We haven't hit them this hard since World War II, and other things of that nature. This was him just the other day saying just that. Take a listen to clip one.
Totally obliterate everything, and that's where we were headed. And they wanted to negotiate, and we're doing that, and it seems to be working out quite well.
What makes you think this will be different? Because they tend to never...
It may be, it may not be. I think that the threat of this... this was more than a threat. We were ready to go. And, in life, they know when you're ready to go and when you're just bluffing. No, we were ready to go, and we are ready to go. We have to do that.
Again, I don't understand what he's saying here. Bluffing? We've bluffed how many times? Let's be realistic, ladies and gentlemen. How many times have we bluffed the Iranians? We're going to attack, we're going to hit here, we're going to hit harder than ever, and then nothing happens. I mean, they even coined the term taco. Trump tacoed out. Trump always chickens out. I mean, this is his motif now, right? This is his mantra. He goes out and says all these outlandish things. We're going to bomb them out of existence, and their civilization. Then it's we like the Iranian people. Then it's we're making a deal. Then we're talking. And the Iranians are saying, no one's talking. We're not speaking to anybody in the White House. We're not speaking to Witkoff or Kushner or Rubio or J.D. Vance anymore. We're not talking to anybody. No, they are talking to the Pakistanis. They're talking to the Omanis. But they're not talking to anybody else. And again, folks, this never had to happen from the start. I've told you this many times ago. That's my dismissal of this war. We should not have been involved in this. Never should have been involved in this. And we'd be much better off had we gone down the route of diplomacy. President Trump chose this route for whatever reasons he may have done it. Could have been pressure from the donor class. I'm sure that was heavily involved in this. Absolutely, 100%. I'm sure he was coaxed in by Netanyahu and company. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, President Trump owns this. President Trump owns all this. He's the one that made the decision to go in and follow Israel in the start of this war. Nobody else told him to do this. As a result, folks, we are struggling significantly right now. And again, prices are going to go up. That's my estimation here, especially when we have issues with oil. Once oil offshoots everything else, then we see that inflation begin to rise even more, just in time for the midterms. Isn't that nice? I think so. Now, this comes out of the Mirror. Let's take a listen to this. It says here that the United States only has 43 days of emergency buffer of crude oil left in a 45-year low. This comes out of the Mirror. And folks, I love when I'm validated and vindicated in what I'm saying to you. This just came out yesterday. How many times have I been saying this to you? I mean, realistically, I've been saying this to you for months now. The crude is getting depleted every single day. We're using roughly at least 2 million barrels per day in our stockpiles. And over the course of several weeks, that depletes you pretty good. Now, the 2 million barrels per day is obviously on the lower end. But folks, we've been going through this. Even Trump came out and said this just recently, which is why he probably went to the table and signed the understanding with the Iranians. But listen to this. It says U.S. crude oil supplies have fallen to their lowest level in 45 years as President Donald Trump continues to wage this war of aggression against Iran. I added that part in there. With only 43 days of global supply left. So we're looking at just a little bit over a month, ladies and gentlemen. And we continue to tap into these reserves until we're in dire straits. Now, I pray to God that doesn't happen. But where's the off-ramp? Where's the ending of this? Where is the fact that, okay, we're going to get this oil now coming in from either Russia or Mexico or Canada or from the Persian Gulf itself, from the Saudis? Where's this oil coming from that we need? We need this heavy, sour crude to come to the United States. That's what we need right now. And as a result, our oil refineries are struggling because 70% of our refineries in the United States deal with just this heavy, sour crude, which makes diesel, which makes aviation fuel, What are we going to do if we don't have this, folks? That's the truth of the matter. It's a supply shock. It's a supply chain issue. Once nothing comes in, you can't manipulate anymore. You can't say, oil's on the way, it's going to be here in just a minute. Once that's gone, then supply and demand really kicks in. The rhetoric no longer matters. So now there is a thinner cushion against any potential disruptions that fighting in the Middle East should further escalate now. That's absolutely true. I can't believe we're even talking about this, that our levels are this low, and it's this way moving forward now. Every single day we come a little bit closer, a little bit closer. You can't get any lower than about 270 million barrels of oil. Now, we know Joe Biden released this during his reign of terror because what he did with the oil industry, the stopping of permits, the cutting of the Keystone XL pipeline, making things much more unaffordable, of course. That's Joe Biden. That's Joe Biden, okay? And, of course, what did he do? He dug into the strategic petroleum reserves. He had to do that. Now, President Trump did exactly the same thing now. And by the way, we have plenty of unleaded fuel. Don't misunderstand, but we have gas for vehicles. But how does everything get to where it needs to go? It gets there by diesel-run fuel, right? Correct? Every 18-wheeler you see on the freeway next to you, or on the thruway, or wherever you are traveling, that runs on diesel fuel. It doesn't run on unleaded fuel. So even if we have this abundance of the unleaded fuels, the sweet crude rather, how's it going to get to where it needs to go, to the gas station? Because those trucks can't get there, because we just don't have it. And as Trump make the decision, okay, let's go below the 270 threshold, and then really put ourselves in danger, what's going to happen if somebody attacks our country? I mean, that 270 number comes from, if the United States is attacked, this is the oil we have necessary to conduct a response or defense response to this invasion of the United States or attack on the United States. I mean, this is what that is intended for. This is an emergency crisis, ladies and gentlemen. And we're just depleting it every single day moving forward. So I wanted to share that with you folks because no one else really does share this with you. Everyone tells you everything's going to be just fine. But here's the truth of the matter. Any other further disruptions to the Strait could really cause a greater impact on the global oil supplies as well. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the oil not getting to Europe or other parts of the world. Most of the oil that comes out of the Persian Gulf continues to go through Asia. Again, they're already seeing multi-decade lows as well. This is going to have a dramatic effect on everything happening in our economy. The global economy is at risk right now. This is what I'm most worried about. I'm worried about the petroleum not getting to where it needs to go. I'm worried about the liquefied natural gas not getting to where it needs to go. The urea, the sulfuric acid, necessary for nitrogen-based fertilizer, none of it's going where it needs to go. We talk about semiconductors. We talk about the AI boom. We talk about the AI bubble. How the hell are you going to create semiconductors or computer chips? You don't have the helium necessary to do so. You're not. That or you have the price just continue to skyrocket, which we're seeing happen right now in real time. So I hope you're enjoying all that. So we're getting very close to this immediate shortage that's going to happen. It has to happen unless Trump stops everything right now. He should just walk away. He should just call it quits and say, listen, we depleted the Iranians so much, we bombed this, we bombed that. He could say whatever the hell he wants. I could care less. Make up whatever story you want. We did the same thing with the Houthis. How many days did we bomb the Houthis for last year? Spent about $1 billion in missiles attacking them. Couldn't even defeat a faction inside the Yemeni government. Or excuse me, they're a rebel group inside the country, rather. But we couldn't even defeat them, yet we're going to defeat the Iranians? We can't even defeat a small group inside a small country inside the Arabian Peninsula, and yet we're going to beat the Iranians in a country of 93 million people, size of Western Europe, size of the American Midwest. We're going to just defeat them. We're just going to collapse in 5 days. Who sold this to President Trump, by the way? And by the way, who in his administration didn't sit him down and say, Mr. President, that's a bunch of nonsense. We didn't defeat the Houthis last year. I mean, you told the American people you did. You couldn't even defeat a small rebel group inside Yemen. Yet we're going to take down the Iranian government. It's amazing to me. Absolutely amazing to me, folks, that this is still being touted as something that is reasonable. This is not a reasonable response. Trump has got to take a step back. I pray every day that he does. and simply call it quits. The American people will love him for it. Now, they're going to be miffed about what he did. But the longer this war extends, I've told you this before, the longer this war extends, the greater the economic response will be. Now, by the way, many people have been saying, by the way, the AI bubble was there already. That's going to happen. That bust is going to happen. The building bust, that was already going to happen. But the oil supply shock, that was all his doing. And of course, this renewed inflation that we want lowered significantly was all because of what he did with the oil industry. Absolutely. And then he comes out, this is great too. This is out of Newsweek. He comes out now, he's slamming Exxon and Chevron about what they're doing in terms of their prices. Now he's coming out saying they make too much money. I mean, that's amazing to me. He creates a supply chain disruption, and then he comes out and says that the oil companies are too greedy. Well, Mr. President, supply and demand says what? If you have the same amount of demand and you cut off a lot of the supply, again, what do we know? Roughly 34% of the global oil supply comes out of the Persian Gulf. We don't drill for it in the United States. That means we have to import it. What does that tell us? It tells us that you have choked this supply out, this commodity that we're dependent on in the United States. And now what happens? That oil that's coming in now, that's $124 per barrel. By the way, of course, just because you see the oil coming in at $81.95, whatever it is today, whatever is sold on the market day, when that oil gets to that final location, it's not just the $81. That's not how much it is. You have to talk about the refining cost. You have to talk about the cost of transportation. That $81 becomes about $140 per barrel. You see what I mean? That's why you're seeing prices beginning to elevate. And so when we see diesel now in the United States over $5 per gallon on the national scale, of course, if you're in California, I think it's over $8 per barrel. On average, it's something ridiculous like that. It's all because of supply and demand now. That's what's in effect with the diesel. And again, the aviation fuel as well. So when he talks about these companies being greedy, they're not. They're responding to the market shock about what's going on. Anyways, here he was just the other day talking just about that.
For Chevron for the quarter, highest in history.
By 12 times.
On the back.
You saw that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. On the backs.
I don't like it.
Workers paying higher debts.
Yeah.
Is our...
They're making too much money, okay? Based on a shortage, they're making too much money. I don't like it. And I should be the last one to say, because I'm a big free enterprise guy. Nobody bigger. And,
I just want to pause here. Did you hear what he just said? He said because of the shortage. So he's acknowledging there's a shortage of oil, which then indicates that we have a shortage problem. So again, ladies and gentlemen, economics 101. I know Trump knows economics. I know he knows this. If you have the same amount of demand and you take out 30% of the oil supply, you have a problem on your hands. That means the price has got to go up. Same thing happens in housing. If you have X number of houses, right? Your supply is low and you have the demand that's high. What happens to the price of housing, folks, in this country? It's going to go up. Or let's say you bring in, millions of people in every single year for 4 straight years. And they need housing. Well, what's going to happen to the price of housing then? It's got to go up. Everything's got to go up, folks. That's the way it works. Let's continue.
You're going to see oil, when we're finished with Iran, you're going to see the prices drop through the floor. But they made too much money. Too much money. Chevron, too much money. Exxon Mobil, too much money. When you look at one company where they made 12 times what they made the year before, they're going to give some of that back to the public. And they better cut the retail price, the consumer price. Too much money. You're surprised I'm saying it? I'll say it loud and clear. I'm not.
Again, it's amazing to me that, again, he's just either not with it or he just doesn't understand it. They're making too much money. They're making 12 times what they made last year. Oh, my God. Well, they've got to charge that. Otherwise, they don't make a profit. That's the way it works. That's the way. And by the way, when he talks about giving the money back, I find that astounding, too. When the American people had to pay money for his ridiculous tariffs, again, which I was opposed to, not because I'm just opposed to tariffs, but I was opposed to the way he went about doing it. Now, if he did it in a constructive way, let's say he went through Congress, which is what the Constitution tells us, ladies and gentlemen, that Congress set reasonable tariffs, maybe not terribly high, Let's say he put a 3% tariff on something, on a couple of commodities that come in the United States. Okay, I'm fine with that. You take that money, you put it in the Treasury, and maybe we pay down some of this debt. God forbid we do that. But the idea that he raised tariffs so significantly that, again, consumer prices continue to rise in 2025 and in 2026. Supreme Court shoots it down, saying it's illegal, which it was. That was the absolute correct ruling, by the way, because we circumvented Congress. We went through the International Economic Emergency Powers Act. And then he just decides to, slap a 50% tariff here, 40% tariff there. You can't do that. First of all, he used trade deficits as being the reason to do so. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've had trade deficits for well over 100 years in this country. There's nothing out of the ordinary with what was going on. We've had these trade deficits going on for quite some time, and nothing new. And again, he used the scheme of that we're being ripped off, right? China's ripping us off. Look at the trade imbalance we have. Well, the reason we had that all a trade deficit means is that a country imports more than we export to that country. So in other words, China sends us more goods than we ship to China. That's where that trade imbalance comes in from. It's not because China's ripping us off. China's making products that we want in the United States. We're not making it here. And so we rely on them to ship those goods here. Same thing with Mexico. Same thing with Canada. I mean, that's how that works. When you stop manufacturing and you start importing more, that you're going to have trade deficits. It's just common nature. It has to happen. So President Trump really wants to get away from all that. He should have been bringing the manufacturing in those specific industries back to the United States. That's the way he should have done this. Yet we've neglected that as of right now. I don't think we're going to see any improvement in that anytime this year, unfortunately. But again, folks, the same thing. What did he do as a result of this now? SCOTUS shot it down, and then what did he do? He didn't give a check to the American people. He gave checks to the companies that already made the money on these rising tariffs. Again, it's unbelievable. A tariff is a tax. He knows this. You put a tax on the commodity, that means that business has to raise their taxes. That's the way it works. So these companies that made much more money, by the way, he didn't say a damn thing about Walmart getting a $10 billion stimulus check on prices of which they already raised under these illegal tariffs, or at least we'll say unconstitutional tariffs. Okay, we'll use it that way. Doesn't say a damn thing about that, does he? Doesn't say a damn thing about Amazon getting $2.2 billion, or was it $600 million? I forget. Maybe at Apple they got the $2.2 billion. I think it was Amazon got $600 million. I mean, they all made out like bandits. And yet now he's chastising the oil industry because of a supply chain issue that he caused, that he created himself. It was all manufactured, ladies and gentlemen. It's not anything they did. They didn't just price gouge the American people. It's supply and demand. And for him not to recognize that and speak of it in that manner, at the same time when he's giving these multi-billion-dollar corporations more money in their pocket after they raise prices, that should tell you something about what's going on here. The bigs are getting bigger. They're making more money. You're losing your purchasing power. That's what it comes down to. You bought the same goods, roughly, at higher prices, and they end up getting more money again. Why do they need the stimulus check? They've got the money. They raised the rates that they needed to get a profit. It's you, the American people, that paid for it. So we should be getting the money back. That would be the rational thing to do. So again, more hot smoke coming from President Trump. Again, falls on deaf ears. Again, I'm shocked that he actually said all that. Again, all by his doing. By the same thing with the tariffs. They were all his doing as well. So his corporate friends raise their rates. They make more money on the back end. It's unbelievable, folks. It really is. Oh, by the way, let me talk about this that just took place yesterday, too. I want to shift gears here and move over to another important topic here. This comes from the Federalist. It says the average man rejects socialism. White affluent liberals chose it for him. Yep. And of course, they're talking about the socialist Abdul El-Sayed, who narrowly defeated Haley Stevens yesterday by 1 point. I guess the Michigan Democrats decided to go the Democratic Socialist route, it seems. He's running on things like Medicare for all, right? So in other words, single-payer health care. So in other words, Bernie Sanders' health care system. Investing in affordable housing, abolishing ICE. I'm sure he would love to ban Thanksgiving as well, just like that lunatic in Wisconsin. Previously calling for defunding the police. Yeah, that's all the same. It sounds nice, though, doesn't it? I always tell you this. Doesn't it sound nice? Single-payer health care. Affordable housing. That sounds nice, doesn't it? But they never talk about how to get there. Now, we've seen Mum Dummy do the same exact thing. These are all his same lines. They're using the same script. The same old mantra. It just doesn't get old, I guess, for these communists. Here's the problem with people like El Sayed. Now, whether he wins or not, that's up to the people of Michigan. If they would like to not vote for the Republican in the race, Mike Rogers, who really should have won in the last election, too, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that out there, too. We talked yesterday on the show in great detail about the shift to the left, certainly in the Democratic Party. This group of people are beginning to take over this party. That's what's happening right now in real time. They are taking over the party, whether we want to admit it or not. Slowly but surely, they're getting elected to these seats in these very blue districts. And the question is, why? Why would somebody go vote for El Sayed? Right? This guy who's as radical as can be, defund the police, abolish ICE. I'm sure he's an open borders guy, too, if he wants to abolish ICE. So therefore, you have no sovereignty. That means everybody can come into your country. Now, only a complete dunce would want that to happen. We know what Medicare for All is. It's a single-payer healthcare system. It's government-run healthcare. Who the hell wants that? They can't even run the damn DMV, the United States. So you're going to let them run your healthcare now, folks? How long would you like to sit in line? How long would you like to wait for your healthcare should it be a Medicare for All system? What they are doing, in all this, by the way, same thing with housing, too. Same thing with housing. They are removing your choices. They're removing private ownership from the healthcare, from the housing, from any other thing you could think of. They would like to remove your ability to do so. They want to make the decisions for you. Now, I'll ask you all, where has this worked before? And I'll answer the question for you. It hasn't. Single-payer healthcare sucks. Go to Canada. Go to the UK. Go check it out. Let me know how it works out for you. That's why anybody with money in Canada comes to the United States for these types of surgeries, because they don't want to wait. They want higher quality healthcare. Now, when we talk about higher costs for healthcare, we have to be realistic. Yes, prices are elevated. Yes, they are. Ladies and gentlemen, but when you have the highest quality healthcare, at least we did a couple decades ago, when you have the highest quality healthcare, it's going to cost more. That's just the way things are. Now, the government can work on ways to reduce the pricing for that. So in other words, they can try to reduce the production costs for different types of machinery and what have you. They could put money into buying that so it doesn't cost these private hospitals more money. That could be one way to work. But this idea that somehow the government can run healthcare better than people that work in the industry, again, it is just simply astounding to hear this. Because they're not going to do a better job. They've never done a good job with anything. In fact, I'll bet you one thing. Name me one government program that is taking control of a specific industry or business that they've run better than the private market. Go ahead, try to figure it out. You can't find it because it doesn't exist. The government's job is very simple. It shouldn't be involved in healthcare or housing. Now, of course, it has to be involved in ICE. That's a government program. But it shouldn't be involved in the local police department. The federal government, that is, of course. But his slogan is, in an economy built by and for working people. He eschews that. He doesn't want that. What the hell is he talking about? Medicare for All kicks out all the private industry. It's now run by the government. That's not the working people. Investing in affordable housing, who's going to build it? Who's going to build it? And at the behest of who? Abolish ICE, that means he's against the borders. I mean, this guy is as radical as it gets. By the way, I think he lied, too, about his own work inside hospitals as well. I think he tried to claim off he was a doctor or something ridiculous like that. He lied about it completely. The guy's a lunatic. Again, I don't know. I don't know if the people in Michigan vote for this guy. I really don't know. I think it's going to be awful if they do. But who is voting for this guy? This is the big takeaway from today. Who is voting for this guy? Who is the group of people that is voting for these radical ideas that never, ever work? That's what you need to be asking yourself. And the answer, ladies and gentlemen, is the younger, wealthier, and so-called educated, y'all use the term indoctrinated, voters in college towns that came out in support for this man and led him to victory. That's what it came down to. So in other words, you're talking about Gen Z kids with money. Affluent Gen Z kids. That's what it comes down to. Why? That's the big question. Why is this happening to them? Why would they vote for this? Why would they vote against, I guess, the establishment Democrat, which is not any better? Haley Stevens is another lunatic, too, by the way. No, don't misunderstand me. Both of these Democrats are insane. But you're now flirting with communism, ladies and gentlemen, which I don't think works for anybody. You'll own nothing and love it? Isn't that what's his name? Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum has told us? You'll own nothing and you'll love it? Really? Do you think any of these rich, spoiled brats would love to own nothing? Think again. Now, I'm not going to claim they're being duped into this, but the big takeaway, and I've said this to you before, there is a Gen Z uprising, if you will. These are younger Americans, these are younger adults. They're trying to find their way in the world. Many of them are burdened with massive student loan debt, right? They've gone to school. They said, okay, I was told to go to college. I'll get a good job when I leave. That may have been true in like the early part of the 1900s. Not a guarantee anymore that you'll have a great job waiting for you, that you'll sit in for the next 40 years, you'll get a pension when you leave, and you'll be smiling and have all the vacation time you want. Not the case anymore. So now we have to understand that we live in a much different world than in the 1960s or the 1970s. That world is gone. Or even the 1980s for that matter. Or we can even go to the 90s, as far as the 90s, when things began to really start changing for the worst. I mean, it was all a slow rot, but it really started changing in the 1990s. It was probably our last really great decade in the United States when there was more normalcy, when we weren't engaged in forever wars. But what these young Americans want, they want to be able to buy a home. They want to be able to have a nice job. They want to be able to do these things. They went to school for it. But what they're being told is, there's nothing here for you. Need not apply. Don't worry about it. So what sounds good to them? If they're working at, let's say, a menial job right now, or like a little upstart job, or what have you. When you hear free grocery store, when you hear free this, free that, free bus ride, free housing, freeze the rent, we'll give you a grocery store, hey, we'll give you a free bus ride. We'll give you a free subway ride, too, if you can even make it on the train, unless you're, attacked first in New York City. It sounds good to you when you're young and you have no experience in the world. Now, again, if you told me at 22, hey, you want a free bus ride? Hey, I'd say, great, cool, yeah, sounds good. I like this guy. But because you haven't thought it through yet. You haven't realized, where does the money come from? Wait a minute, because they're not told this. Where's the money come from? Where are they going to allocate this money to give me the free bus ride? Or the free grocery store? Or the free this, or the free that, or the free street sweeping, or whatever it may be. It doesn't matter what it is. Young people are impressionable until they have some real-life experience, which doesn't take place usually right away unless you're a really brilliant kid. Free this, free that sounds nice. So the candidate's offering them something, even if it's something minor or something trivial, if you will, it's still better than absolutely nothing. And this is my biggest problem with President Trump right now. What he needed to be doing, day one, is showing that, yes, capitalism does work. Yes, will we give young kids opportunities? Yes, they will flourish on their own. But we got to offer those opportunities. We have squandered those opportunities in this country going as far back as the early 1990s. We saw things like NAFTA, CHAFTA, all these other programs coming in. Jobs leaving, good paying jobs leaving. Gone. They're not here anymore. Bringing H-1B visa holders. Again, Donald Trump was in a very unique position. We're just coming out of Joe Biden's tenure. which is a complete failure, 100%. And what he could have said is, you know what? I'm going to let the free market work on itself. I'm going to encourage business to come back to the United States. We're going to bring back manufacturing in the United States. We're even going to bring back new manufacturing. We're going to start building refineries for rare earth minerals. We're going to lead the world in AI. We're going to build these stupid data centers. That's what he should have said too, by the way. But we're going to lead the world in AI. We're going to be sophisticated in these fields. We're going to put a moratorium on all immigration. We're simply not going to do it. We're going to have mass deportations, and jobs will begin to open up again. And encourage entrepreneurship. That's what he should have been doing. But instead, what do we get? We got a foreign war. I don't know what else we got. I guess we got some soybean farmers that are happy. They can sell more of their soybeans to China now. But when these young Americans, and again, it's frustrating. I understand what this feels like when you leave college. You're strapped with all this debt, and you're ready to get to work. You want that, and then there's no opportunities for you. So you spent all this money on what? What did you spend the money on? So you get a little jaded. That's understandable. But it's not the world of when Donald Trump was in college. It's not the 1960s anymore. It's not the 1970s. It's not even the 80s or the 90s. It's a totally different world now. And in that span of time, inflation has risen greatly. Cost of housing has significantly risen. Absolutely. It's not like it was in the 1980s. Believe me. It's not, obviously housing is already, has been a little bit unaffordable to you. You had to put down a mortgage loan. You had to put money down. It's not happening for these young adults because they're not getting the income that is necessary for them to save up to buy a house. And if you live in California, it's even worse, by the way. You can't make a job that pays you, really under $300,000 a year in California and make it in any of these, metropolitan areas. You can't do it anymore. It's just you will not be able to do it. Believe me, you will not be able to do it. You've got to make well into the six figures if you're going to make it in California. Of course, you're in inland California, but even there, prices are rising as well. So when we look at what's going on, when I talk to you about this, what I'm saying to you is there has to be opportunities. I'm not saying we should be giving just kids houses because they feel like they earn a house. Give opportunities. Show people that, yes, you can do this. So we got to bring down inflation. We've got to do that. Got to bring up wages, not inflation. That's not happening, though. The opposite is true. I told you on the show last week. Wages rose in June 3.4% year over year, but inflation rose 4.2%. So all your wages got eaten up in this country. So when Trump comes out and says, we're in the golden age, we've never seen anything like it before in our lives, well, that's simply just not true. That's simply just not true. When things become unattainable for young Americans, they're going to get upset, and they will vote for whomever is giving them something, even if it's a little bit. Because something is better than nothing. And I hate to tell it to you that way, folks. That's the way it is, though. That's the way it is, and that's the way it'll be moving forward. We're seeing this all over the world, too, by the way, with these young Gen Zers. So what President Trump should have done was shown that, yes, capitalism does work. Yes, we are going to make it work. We're going to cut rates. We're going to cut taxes. We're going to do all this, again, even more so. And we'll show you that, yes, you can make it in this world. You can do this because the free market always wins. But we didn't do that. Now we're spending money on these forever wars again. Always money for war, but never money for anything else. At the same time, when we start infrastructure crumbling right in front of our eyes. So again, it's disheartening to a lot of these young people, and I understand it. Believe you me, I understand it. I'm a millennial. I get it. So this is why this is happening. This is why this is appealing. This is why we see these socialist Democrats or these Democratic socialists, however we want to call them, that are looking at these young groups of people and they're saying things that appeal to them. It sounds nice. Free sounds nice, doesn't it, folks? But what they don't know is that it's taxpayer funded. That's why Mum Dummy's failing. That's why Katie Wilson will fail. That's why Abigail Spanberger will fail. That's why Mikey Sherrill will fail. They'll all fail because these policies do not work in the end. So they'll lead to more poverty and more unaffordability as time goes on. That's the problem that most people don't understand. Nothing's going to get better from this. But it sounds good, so they buy into it at the time. So Trump really missed out on a great opportunity, which he could have used that would have been much more beneficial to him had he have focused on affordability, bringing down the cost of production, bringing down the cost of, obviously, core prices, lowering inflation, open up job opportunities, bring back these markets to the United States, bring back the manufacturing. But we didn't do that, folks, unfortunately. So Trump will have to, I guess, do what he can. I don't know what he's selling people for the midterms. I really don't know what his message is. You can only tell people everything's great so many times, where people go, this is not great. This isn't great at all. You know, I can go back and look at old video footage of America in the 1950s. Pristine streets, just no chaos in the streets. I mean, just beautiful. Everyone is just dressed immaculately. You know, shirt and ties, suits, women in dresses. Everyone's, you know, driving the car, have the home. That doesn't exist anymore. And when things get more and more unattainable to people, then they shift more to whoever has given them something. That's what it comes down to. That's why I wanted to say that to you folks. That's why you're seeing the rise of the Al Saids and these other lunatics on the left. That's why that's happening right now. And on another note, just since we're talking a little bit about the economy right now, I do want to tell you this. I've been talking about this, and that's not bad enough that we have young Americans pushing more to a favorable view of communism. Let's talk about what Ray Dalio said. He's on the AI bubble. He said it's nearing the 1929-2000 levels. Yep. Who's been saying that to you, folks? Oh, that's right. I've been saying that to you. Yes, of course. Yes, the AI bubble, right? Now, his warnings arrived just as the market prepares to test his thesis in real time, stating that SpaceX has already gone public and the largest IPO ever, and the Anthropic and the OpenAI are barreling towards $1 trillion valuations. Precisely the kind of speculative issuance surge that market historians treat as a bubble's clearest warning signs. So in other words, we're pumping all this money, ladies and gentlemen, into a lot of this AI. Well, yeah, we're told AI is the future. You have a government that's bullish on AI. So people want to get behind it. They think it's the next big thing. So you invest, and what do you get in return, though? That's the problem. What have any of these companies really created? So the bubble gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point, ladies and gentlemen, you have to pay the piper. At some point, that bubble busts. Unfortunately. But that's the way it is. And we see this again with the housing bust. I call it the building bust as well. When you have structures in your downtowns and major cities all across America, they're not being utilized. The owners of these buildings are going to default on them at some point because nobody is occupying them. They're just remaining vacant. And I used to see this all over Los Angeles too, by the way. It's heartbreaking. You see a nice building there constantly with a for sale sign, for lease sign on them. Nobody's buying them. So what happens? The banks go under. So we're looking at a building and banking bust and an AI bubble bust as well this year. It's coming to a city and town near you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't say I didn't tell you that. But you know what else I found interesting? I was listening to Gerald Celente yesterday, and he was talking a little bit about the stock market with Judge Andrew Napolitano. And what he said was shocking to me. Let me just tell you a couple of these stats he listed off. He said the top 1% in America owns 54% of the stock market. So over half the stock market is owned by the top 1% of this country. And he said that when you add the top 10 in there, 93% of the stock market. So the top 10% of income earners in America own roughly 93% of the entirety of the stock market. Then you look at just a couple of these investment companies, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. They own roughly 25 to 30% of the entirety of the stock market. And again, folks, when I tell you the bigs are getting bigger, I don't just say that to you just to say that to you, just to put people down. I'm telling you that because that's exactly what's happening. The bigs are getting bigger. The small are getting smaller. They're buying up all this because they're the ones that can afford it, the bigs. And they're making a lot of money off it, too. Now, one of the things I've said to you, too, by the way, this comes from the Washington Times. I said right when Trump took office, I said right what he needs to do, right away. He's got to make sure he cleans out the government malfeasance. 100%. This shouldn't even be controversial. And one of the ways he did this was the DOGE, right? He came with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Sounds good. We'll have savings for the taxpayers. We need this. But what really came from it? Once Elon Musk mentioned to audit Fort Knox to see how much gold we had there, he went away pretty quickly, didn't he, folks? I thought so, too. Now, apparently there's a new audit by the Government Accountability Office, and the Fed's chief investigative agency said that DOGE took credit for cuts already in the pipeline and exaggerated many of the claims and couldn't provide evidence for others. All told, of the $110.3 billion that DOGE had claimed to have saved, this agency said that it found solid support for only 4% of those claims. Well, even so, 4%, I'll take it. If we can cut down government malfeasance, giving out money to people that don't earn it, I'm fine with that. I'd rather them look at something and get it wrong and have oversight come in and say, you know what, we actually do need this, than saying, let's just keep throwing this money out there to anybody that puts their hand out. By the way, we've seen this too with these fraudulent organizations that get no oversight in a lot of these states. They get this money for learning centers, for all this other nonsense, daycare, this center, that center. Then they go check on it and nothing's there. These people are pocketing all this money given to them. So there is oversight that needs to be done. Now, whether DOGE can go in and check that, I don't know. At a state level, I'm sure you'll find lots of it. But let me give you one more example. The high-speed rail in California. It's wasted billions of dollars, and yet a line of track has yet to be laid. Where'd all this money go, folks? That's taxpayer money. That's money that the federal government gave the state of California to build this high-speed rail. Nothing got built. And they keep wanting more and more money. Why? Nothing's being built before. So if you haven't built anything, what have you done with the money? Explain that one, Gavin Newsom. I don't think you can. Folks, we see other countries. We see China. They have high-speed rail. They, get from one place to another quickly. They lay track down very quickly. They innovate very much so. Why is it that we in the United States now are not doing this? Because the people that are getting these contracts, they're not building it. They're pocketing the money, and no one is holding them accountable to it. No one's saying, where's the track? Where's the cars? Why is this not working by now? You haven't met your deadline. Oh, you say you have a learning center? Where is it? Where are the kids? How many kids have you helped? What's your budget look like? We don't get these questions answered because nobody oversees it. We have to get an independent reporter like a Nick Shirley to get out there and actually go to a place and say, hey, I'm at this location, has a sign, nobody's in there. I haven't seen anybody go in or out all day. It's supposed to be a learning center. It's supposed to be a hospice center. It's supposed to be this or that. And we're throwing lots of money. We saw this again in Minnesota as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not shocking. But people are pocketing the money and making out pretty good with it too, by the way. Now, of course, they've charged some people with it, but so much money has been just thrown out there. And I say to myself, why not just lower taxes, let people keep their money? So that way they don't have to apply to a government program to get all this money to do something on their own, where they could just save up and do it themselves. That was the American way. And again, I told you before, the American way, what we once knew, you saved up your money and then put money down and leased out a building, or bought a building, created your own business, did that. Those days are over now. Unless, of course, you have a lot of money. I'd rather it come from the American people that have a stake in the matter to say, listen, I'm going to get this building, I'm going to start a restaurant, or I'm going to start a hardware store, or I'm going to start a, textile store, whatever it may be. I'd rather it be done that way than the government just throwing this money out time and time again. We never get any oversight. We lose so much of our money. And yet the government just prints out more as a result for all these new wars. Now, in one case, DOGE said it had got to the Defense Department's health agency to nix some $1.7 billion in a technology contract. But again, the Government Accountability Office investigators said that the contract was never cut or reduced. Oh, so thus there was no savings that were achieved. Listen, even if Elon Musk came in and got a bunch of it wrong and only got 4 or 5% of it right, I'm glad he caught that 4 to 5%. What the hell do I care? He wasn't getting paid for any of it anyways. No, all these programs are already in the pipeline to be cut. Okay, good. Let's make sure they get cut then. That was his job, to make sure that there is programs that are not being utilized that are cut. That's what we want. That's what we should be seeing. We want to root out this waste, fraud, and abuse. That's what we keep hearing about, so let's do it. And if you're going to be dishing out money to certain different types of programs or certain types of people, you need to have oversight on it at a consistent level. So you know people aren't just pocketing the money. And that's all she wrote on that one, ladies and gentlemen. Now, here's a nice positive article. We have a couple minutes remaining in today's program. Let me talk to you about this. This comes out of the Wall Street Journal. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we got a little bit of dignity here. Senate panel votes to hold Anthony Fauci in contempt for refusing to answer questions. Well, this should have been done the day he did this. I don't know why it's taken us so long. They finally voted on their committee to see exactly what they should be doing with Anthony Fauci, and then Senator Rand Paul, who heads the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, sought to directly seek to the Justice Department for potential prosecution, and that's what they did today. And it's about time. We should have justice for what Anthony Fauci did. It was voted highly on party lines, and I'll let you listen to the roll call right now. So just know you had 7 of your Democratic senators think what Anthony Fauci did the other day when he sat there and stonewalled Congress, stonewalled that committee, was just fine for his actions during COVID. Take a listen.
Seeing no other motions, the question is on reporting of an original resolution regarding contempt of Congress. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Johnson.
Yes.
Senator Langford.
Aye.
Senator Scott.
Yes.
Senator Hawley.
Aye.
Senator Moreno.
On behalf of the millions of people harmed by Anthony Fauci, resoundingly yes.
Senator Ernst. Aye. Senator Moody. Aye. Senator Peters.
No.
Senator Hassan.
No.
Senator Blumenthal.
No.
Senator Fetterman.
No.
Senator Kim.
No.
Senator Gallego.
No by proxy.
Senator Slotkin.
No by proxy.
Senator Paul.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
There you have it. Every single Republican voted for his contempt. Well, again, we know he broke the law. Just because he had a pardon doesn't mean he can sit there and stonewall everybody. Sit there like a mute. Didn't have to answer questions. By accepting the pardon, he relinquished his Fifth Amendment right, which he claimed to be using. Yet you heard every single Democrat from Blumenthal to Kim to Gallego, who wasn't even there, by the way. Slotkin, where the hell are they? Were they already on vacation, on recess? Must be nice, huh? How is it that you have a body of people that listen to the diary entries, that saw in real time? Well, they were all in the government at the time, except for, I believe, Slotkin. Bernie Moreno wasn't there. Of course, he lived through it, he said. We all did. Took Anthony Fauci's information, which we know he funded gain-of-function research. We have the information that he did that. He denied that during hearings previously with Rand Paul. Created these lockdown situations, this situation, wear a mask, keep the schools closed. Listen to what Anthony Fauci says. By the way, Anthony Fauci has no say in anything. Anthony Fauci's job is to research viruses and figure out ways in order to combat them. He didn't even do that. Why? Because he wasn't interested in that. So why they even put Fauci out there to begin with? We should have had someone just in the CDC who are supposed to make recommendations. Recommendations, not orders, not edicts. The CDC isn't a lawmaking body, nor is the NIH. Yet we let Anthony Fauci tell people what to do, and these governors do this in their constituency, in their states. Unbelievable. He should be held accountable. I'm glad to see this. I don't know if anything will happen. I won't hold my breath, but I'm at least happy to see this starting to take place. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we'll end things here today. Thank you again for being here. Make sure you're staying prepped with your essentials, always. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another episode of The Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless.